If you really want freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, the not just like financial freedom and all that, but like the freedom and flexibility to build your business whenever you want, there's nothing better than building on social media, building from your phone, building online. I know a lot of you already know Brian, but if you don't, just know he's one of the best trainers, coaches, mentors out there in the network marketing space. He's been in the field building, leading teams, creating success. But then years ago, he decided, you know what? I want to coach. I want to take a step back from network marketing. So he retired from the profession. He's no longer actively building, but he mentors and coaches people in the profession to help them build a full-time income, help them smash their goals. And he's a genius when it comes to all things social media. You're not going to burn yourself out if you can create some automation, some systems for building and acquiring customers and building the team and all the things. So with that being said, Brian, because you do coach and train a lot of people in different companies, what are you seeing today? What are you seeing? Because obviously things have slowed down a little bit with maybe the algorithm and maybe people aren't going viral as easily as they could maybe just a year ago. So what are you seeing today that's most impactful and most effective when it comes to building with social?
It amazes me, first and foremost, I don't want to say the lack of knowledge, but there's just still so many folks out there who don't truly understand the power of social, right? Again, like you said, I don't ever want to take away from what they've done up to this point, whether it's online or offline, whatever, but just truly understanding how social works, how technology works, how to leverage it. I'm just like you, John. I mean, back when my wife and I were building in the field, there was nothing against Zooms or Google Hangouts back in our day. Zoom necessarily wasn't like the front runner. But even then, John, we were grinding, hustling, sure, doing Google Hangouts, but that wasn't something that I saw myself doing in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I didn't want to do 10, 15, 20 of those a day. Again, back to that word leverage. Again, Zooms are cool. You're just like I am. But I mean, isn't the ultimate goal, you talked about the word freedom, isn't the goal to eventually not have to do 10 Zooms a day, 15 Zooms a day? Let's use the word leverage. But let's talk a little bit about like what's working today. I just shared with all these folks at this last event, I talked about these 2 C's, and I'll kick it back to you in a sec. Let's talk about this. The first C that I talked about on social was simply a conscious decision of contribution. John, how many folks do you and I both know out there, leader or not leader, doesn't matter rank, income, but that are not willing to make a decision to contribute? They just show up, they're on social, they're just hanging out. They might comment every once in a while, but you and I both know, right? To build your own personal brand, become not an influencer, because I don't like that word. I'd rather become a person of influence. You have to do what? You have to contribute. Those who are choosing not to contribute based on fear, scared of what this person's going to think, family members, versus those who are contributing. What are you seeing across the scale? Those who are contributing, those who are not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a good word, because if you're showing up and you're becoming a content creator, like you said, a contributor, you're building community, right? And you're creating connections on the back end. That's what it's all about. And here's one of the reasons that you and I think both went down this path. And obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you're just like me. And like most people, it's like, I don't want to rely on my warm market, especially back then. My warm market sucked. And for me, it was like, man, I want to find better people. I want to attract people to me. I didn't know much about attraction marketing, but I knew one thing. I was exhausted by cold prospecting, intimidated by cold prospecting. I never liked having to rely on me, meeting people within 3 foot of me every time I was out. Like I hated like looking at someone that was sharp dressed, or like my waiter, my bartender, being like, how can I recruit this person? Like, how can I get, and back then it was like, how can I get their number? Like I hated having to do it that way. So I was always like looking for ways to not have to do that. I would cold call, I would run ads, I would do anything back in the early days before social media just to get people coming to me, or to at least not have to recruit people when I was out and about. My warm market, the people I was actually friends with, especially in the early years, they were mostly broke. They were mostly like me. They didn't have any influence, any credibility, any experience, and most of them were closed-minded. And I started paying attention to the Gary Vaynerchuks, Tim Ferriss, Chalene Johnson, Ray Higdon. They were all talking about building a list, building an audience, building a following. And I was like, that just sounds better than what I'm doing.
up until this point, they've had this mentality of what can I get, right? I joined a company. I represent XYZ amazing products. Like, let's go. I got 500 friends. Let's go see what I can get. And I'll tell you what, John, here's what I've seen after all these years, and you would probably agree, is the people with that mentality, they're not winning.
Yeah.
They're not winning. They're I don't know if I like the word losing, but they're definitely not, they're not winning. And I would say we can all think of probably a handful of people right now, people started coming to your mind that are more so like the takers in life. And I want you to think about that concept about building your business on social media. Are you showing up just what can I get? What can I sell? How can I get this person to join my team? Take, get, versus, right? What can I give? The people who are saying, what can I give? How can I contribute are winning big. You and Nadya are a true testament to that. People think before I can give or make, value-based posts, videos, reels, TikToks, whatever, that I got to be an expert, right? I got to know everything about a certain thing before I can start sharing. You and I both learned something early on from one of our mentors, our good buddy Ray, right? He talked to ILT, right? People are out there consuming personal development content, health and wellness content, makeup, skincare content. But then that's where it stops. They're not willing to turn it back around and share some of the things they learned. And there's one other thing that I want to share, John, and I'd love your thoughts on this. When I talk about contribution, when I talk about posting value and all this stuff, I'm seeing a trend. The days of, just creating a post, the days of just doing a reel or a TikTok, in my opinion, are kind of slim to none nowadays. And it's really coming down to authenticity and the connection within the reel you're doing, within the post that you're doing. People are sick and tired of the fluff. They're sick and tired of, the same reel that they've seen everybody else do. They want authenticity. They want that opportunity to say, you know what, I actually really connect with that type of person.
Well, it's funny too, because some of your most viral videos, or let's not even talk about going viral, but just the videos or the posts that do the best have nothing to do with your business, because they see you. Like, I had a woman that I recently enrolled, and she straight up said, like, I saw you at your son's baseball games. And because I see you, you're obviously very successful. You're making a lot of money. That's great. But that's not what attracted me to you and what you're doing. It was the fact that you and your wife were at your son's games. And the fact that I saw that, how much parenting and your kids and your family matters to you, like, that's what matters to me also.
When I go back to saying, authentic and all that, it's not, we're not talking like the typical jargon, John, we've heard for years. Be authentic, be yourself, be you, be unique. No, to hell with all that. Like, let's actually just stop watering down our message and just be the real version of ourselves, the authentic version of ourselves. And I just think that social media, people are tired of the watered down message. I think over the last 2 years, what everybody's been through has kind of gotten us past that. But I think this is really the key to success. 2022, 2023, 2024, like, people are going to start gravitating those who are authentic in what they're doing.
I love that. The bolder you are, the better. And sometimes that's, obviously there's, some discomfort there, right? Really putting yourself out there and having strong beliefs and opinions. But at the end of the day, those are the people that are going to stand out for sure. And here's how you know your post is probably too vanilla. Everybody's agreeing with you. Everybody just loves what you're posting. And look, that's also fine. Not every post is going to be controversial. Listen, let me tell you something else. Funny equals money. So if you're like a funny person, like you have a dry sense of humor, or you're a pretty creative person, like whatever your strong suits are, like, we need to see that. Let me see your personality. Like, when you see my videos, you see Brian's videos, like, you know who we are. We are very in your face. We say it like it is. And if you were to meet us in person, you'd be like, wow, they're like the same person. Like, they're not like a different person in person, right? Like, you have to remember, when you show up in a certain way, you have a choice of classy or trashy. That just means you have to choose how you want to show up. And remember, you are going to attract what it is you put out there. I show up in a professional way that works for us. But hey, if it works for you to do something other than the way we do it, like he said, you figure out your way of showing up, who you want to attract, and stop worrying about. This is the biggest thing I'm trying to get through to you. Stop worrying about the people that don't like you or the people that hate on you. In fact, if nobody's hating on you, you're probably not doing a whole lot. It's like a magnet, right? Attraction marketing is like a magnet. You will attract while you simultaneously repel. So if you say, hey, but I do get more views when I'm half naked in my videos, But what are you attracting is the question, right? So you also have to think about that. The kind of people you would want to attract, the kind of people that you would want to work with, who are they? What do they do? What kind of content do they consume? What kind of beliefs do they have?
I just see, and I think, in my opinion, this started like maybe 6-9 months ago. Like I started noticing this is the people who are, contributing online and just trying to appease the masses. They're literally getting like segmented in this big pool of minutia that really isn't making as big of an impact as they probably think they could be, right? Okay. But it is those who are continuing, again, like you said, I agree 100% what you said, but finding that their own authentic way to do so, right? I think are the people who are starting to separate themselves from the pack. Again, they're just sick and tired of living this watered down version of like just posting inspiring quotes all the time. Like, listen, that's cool. You've inspired us for for 15 years now. That's cool. Like, we want to learn something more about you. We want to know, you and Nadya do a great job of this and teaching your folks is vulnerable, like your vulnerabilities, like not airing dirty laundry. But, I think there's times and places to where someone like me, John, someone like you, who can continue now to share even more of the stories, right? Of life, of business, because I think that's going to create an incredible, just connection with the folks who have yet to know who you and I are.
It's a really good point too, because the quotes and the inspiration is great, but man, if you can tie that to a story, tie it to an example, and we've all heard the cliche, facts tell, stories sell. So if you have personal experiences, or you can tell your customer stories, your friends, your coworkers, your business partners, your mentor stories. Some of the best speakers in the world, they're great storytellers of other people's stories. And obviously that takes time like anything else. But I'll tell you what, you want to start getting attention, you connect, look at the best shows, look at the most popular movies. They tie inspiration, they tie excitement, they tie drama to an actual story, an example, etc. I think that's really important. And, the best people speak from a scar. As Chalene Johnson says, you speak from a scar, not an open wound. So like if you're in the middle of going through some horrific things, maybe that's, like you're in the middle of I have been sober. I haven't had a sip of alcohol in 14 years. So it's easier for me to talk about sobriety. But if I was like just 30 days in and I was really like struggling and I was having like withdrawal from whatever, right? It's a little harder because it's still like a very like an open wound. Same thing if you're battling with depression or divorce or some of the things that are like very fresh and you're kind of going through it. Maybe it's not time to tell that story. That one you can put on the back burner. But I love the vulnerability piece. I love the just being upfront with, again, other people's stories, but also your own personal experiences and stories. And I'm not afraid to talk about, some of the things that happened to me in the past. I was in the beginning, so that's common, especially because you have certain friends and family, you're worried about them seeing your stuff. Let me tell you something. If you have people in your life, the brother-in-law, the father-in-law, the cousin, the best friend, the spouse that are like super negative about you putting yourself out there, your mom's really hard on you, I'm sorry, but you might have to block them. You might have to invite them to your VIP block party, because if they are affecting you that much, where like you're literally afraid to talk about certain things or put yourself out there, because there's like probably, it's only a handful, right, Brian? It's like two or three people that you're like, those 2 or 3 people, they're going to make fun of me. Or if I post this, they're going to be upset with me. Unfriend them, delete them, because you need to be able to show up. And if just a couple people are holding you back from greatness, just remove them from seeing your stuff, period, end of story. And look, if they're not going to encourage you and support you, they don't need to be on your friend list. You can still be friends in real life. You can still love them in real life. But on social media, you're here to build a business and build a community.
I'm going to preach to about 80% of you. When John and I said that, telling stories and stuff, the immediate thought you had was, well, I'm not good at writing, or I'm not good at telling stories. And guess what? John and I can sit here and raise our hands saying, when we first thought of this concept, right? Okay, we're freaking terrible too. We're still terrible, but we're work in progress. I honestly feel that, telling stories, whether they're writing them on social media or speaking, telling them in person, that's just a skill.
Yeah.
That's just a skill that no matter your rank, your level of income, your title, doesn't matter, your experience, each and every one of you listening can get better at telling stories. And how you do that, right, is by simply screwing it up several dozen or even 100 times like myself, to where now I feel a little bit more confident. I still feel like a beginner, but I just wanted to address those of you who are like, well, I want to be vulnerable. I want to, tell more stories, because I feel people are connecting to those more on social now. Just think of some of the folks you guys follow now. You're probably most attracted to the people who are telling stories through their content, through their live videos, through their posts. And just start taking some notes, right? If you listen to something today about something John and I shared, just jot that quick note down, but continue to work on this skill. I'll tell you, you want to talk about freedom, John, in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, those who start mastering the skill of telling stories online, offline, whatever, I'm telling you, things will just come a lot simpler.
You can be a person of influence. You can start to show up and say, you know what, I'm just going to help that person that I used to be. I'm going to help the person that is where I was a week ago or a month ago or a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I'm going to start communicating to that person. And that's actually how I started creating content. I started thinking about that person, or I'd either be talking to myself in the past, or I'd be talking to one person in particular. I would think of this one person in my mind, and I'd record that video as if I was talking to them, but it was a video that everybody could watch, because I knew that even if that one person didn't watch it, there were other people in that same person's exact situation.
From the social side, what I've seen is a mass adoption of something like TikTok or Reels. Reels still are the number one growth metric on social, hands down. In my opinion, every single one of you should freaking be doing them to some extent or another. But now it's not about like, oh, I saw John and Nadya do one on this and they talked about this, I'll just recreate theirs. No. It's about finding your own lane, your own voice. And then I feel like doing your own variations of 2, 3, 4, 5 different variations of your own style of reel. Those, moving towards that authentic conversation and non-watered down, I think is what we're seeing a lot more of. And those who are adopting that right now are still seeing their reels and TikToks do fairly well.
We all have our own unique way of showing up and putting our personality and our beliefs out there. So don't get too caught up in, what everybody else. There's already tons of people teaching on this thing. I mean, think about all the books that are out there on all the different types of categories. You go to the library and there's just like entire sections on all these different, like fantasy novels and, fiction and biographies and right. But why do some of them not sell at all? And some of them sell really, really well, because that small percentage of authors that do really well, they show up, they put themselves out there. They are authentic, like all the things we're talking about. And if you really want to stand out on social media these days, you have to take what we're teaching you right now and just start implementing, start putting yourself out there, and don't get addicted to the results. Marry the process, divorce the results, meaning don't worry if it's not working all that well. If you're not generating leads or people aren't reaching out to you yet, you're not signing people up from your videos yet is the key. It's just figuring out your messaging. In the early days, and Brian, I don't know about you, but in the early days, like when we first started doing videos and putting ourselves out there, like they were terrible. We didn't know what we were talking about. We didn't know what our brand was. We didn't know our niche, any of that stuff, but we just knew what we were doing was exhausting and we wanted to figure out a better way. And quite honestly, thank God, a lot of you didn't see those videos in the early days, because you probably wouldn't have followed us. You probably would have unfollowed us if you would have seen those videos in the early days. I know that's at least true for me. I was literally driving. I was literally recording videos while I was driving with these big sunglasses. You could see up my nose. Probably not the best videos, but guess what? We all start somewhere.